it is a very cozy day indeed to talk about misogyny. Hello, you beautiful nerds. This week we are back to form. Anyway, thank you everybody for deciding to click on this video. As the channel grows larger, I wish to make it clear that I make videos like this to bring light to certain issues and topics. And one day I do hope I can do this for a job. But we'll see how that goes. With the sentiments out the way, please press that subscribe button, like the video, despite what you think of it, and give that bell a gong. I'm working on it, okay? Like, give me a break. Thank you for joining me today for this talk about misogyny, and my favorite iteration of such is misogyny in horror. Got a nice ring to it, right? This is a joke. Right, let's go back in time 40 years and discover what made slashers misogynistic. Men. Alright, thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed my analysis and I wish you a great rest of your day. I know I have to do slightly more than that, unfortunately. Right, so...
back to it.
Slashers are all about blood and boobs. This is what primarily attracted the masses to screenings of Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. Although Elm Street is pretty lacking in the boob department. The misogyny in these films is pretty clear, if you look hard enough, so not that clear actually. They usually have a woman who is an innocent... Okay, back to it. They usually have a woman who is an innocent virgin be the final survivor of the murders, and the girls that spent their time actually enjoying themselves got killed, often brutally. The final girl is often also depicted way more fearful of the prominently male antagonist than any other male character otherwise would be. The men are depicted to be on top of things unless they are tokenized as one of these three things. The dork, the racial tick box, or the stoner. You cannot convince me otherwise. Did I press play on this thing? Yes, I did. Misogyny is extremely clear when you realize that a lot of the time when women are sex positive in these films, they get murdered. Sometimes, but not always, during their sexy time, or half naked. It is rare that slashers of the 1980s were written by female writers, and it shows. But what got us to this? Before Nightmare, before Friday, how did we come to accept misogyny in slashers? John Carpenter's Halloween, you might say. Possibly. Halloween brought forth the final girl trope, as well as the final girl's innocence playing into their survival, even if John Carpenter didn't intend for Laurie to be coincidentally a virgin angel. Virgin angel? God, now I sound misogynistic. Carpenter, despite his intent, managed to cement some tropes that would plague the slasher genre for decades. He didn't even know he was making a subgenre at the time. Despite any good or bad intention, the final girl trope is misogynistic, and a lot of people have tried to point this problem out, and filmmakers have even tried to fix it. Final boy. To support my claim, here is one of many articles that outline the problem. Specifically, violence against women in this case. Subjects which horrify and scare one person will, of course, offend another. There is certainly no shortage of audiences being offended by horror movies. A frequent argument against the genre is that it is problematic to enjoy watching women be killed in graphic and violent ways. However, there are reasons for depicting violence in film, beyond purely entertainment purposes. Many serious and intentionally horrifying scenes aim to provoke discussion, critical analysis, and make political statements. In the 1970s, rape revenge films became popular because of their political commentary, shown through a gritty, brutal display of sexual violence. Possibly the most well-known one, I Spit on Your Grave from 1978, was created because the director, Miyazaki, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, actually came across a woman in a park after being attacked. He assisted in taking her to the hospital and decided that her story must be told. Rape revenge movies usually depict a violent attack, then follow the victim turned survivor in tracking down the male perpetrators and violently killing them. It was banned in many countries, such as Norway, Ireland, West Germany, and Iceland, because their people argued that its lengthy, drawn-out rape scenes glorified violence against women. However, many feminists claim that it is actually a feminist movie because it is told through the eyes of the woman, and because it doesn't hold back in showing the vicious reality of sexual violence. This is from an article from 2015 published by The Outspoken. Link below for the full thing. Many horror fans defend the movie I Spit on Your Grave for its satisfying murders, as every single man guilty of the sexual assault gets violently and brutally murdered by their victim. I can definitely see the argument there. It is enjoyable to watch rapists be brutally murdered. The main problem a lot of people face with the film, however, is its drawn-out rape scenes. And rightfully so. It can be argued that even I Spit on Your Grave follows the final girl trope, and yeah, I can definitely support that argument. On that note, I have more to say on the trope. Many non-horror fans would argue that women being victimized and brutally killed very often in these films actually presents women as weak and incapable. It is quite the contrary, at least in my humble opinion, as one great thing the final girl trope actually provides is the reassurance that the final girl wins. In one way or the other, the final girl outsmarts and stands up to the slasher villain's brute force and defeats them. This is done in many different ways, but just to name a few. Nancy stops giving Freddy the power of believing in him and he loses all of his powers. The cliffhanger ending doesn't count since Wes Craven never wanted that scene to begin with. Ginny puts on Pamela's sweater and pretends that she is Pamela, confusing Jason and giving her the chance to catch him off guard. Chris drives a f***ing axe into Jason's skull and also hangs the motherfucker. Sydney puts on the Ghostface costume and hides to unsettle Billy and Stu playing their game, then stabs Billy in the shoulder with an umbrella. And finally, Ripley blows the alien out into f***ing space. Twice. I could go on, I always can, but I think those are enough examples for now. The horror genre is as diverse in political commentary as any other. In fact, I would argue that it lends itself easier to political commentary than other genres do, as it can be clouded in mystery and implications much more than a rom-com can. The important thing to consider, however, is that it has a layered approach to misogyny. I know that sounds confusing. Let me explain. The genre definitely has a lot of misogyny in it. The whole idea of tits and violence is used to get teenagers to see the film, especially in the 1980s when pornography was not as accessible as it is today. But the idea of tits and violence is of course using women as a means to an end. It is using their bodies as a gimmick to sell more movie tickets. The same can be said for violence, as it can be argued that it is only used as a tool to sell more tickets, diluting the whole idea of brutal violence. However, both of these have become a staple of the genre, but especially slashers. It is important to consider why a film has so much violence and sex. Does it serve the story, the commentary, or is it used as a selling point? The answer is, sadly, way more complicated than it needs to be. While a lot of the sex we see does only serve to show us exposed women, it is an easy argument to say that these are young people locked together in some sort of enclosed area. Of course they're going to start f***ing each other. While on the other hand, the violence is a staple of the genre. Horror would not be what it is today without violence. That is why, if every horror movie would be an atmospheric art film, it would get very boring very quickly. Horror needs violence to be what it is, and slashers very often discriminate on whether you're an asshole rather than what your gender is. Why is this? Because generally speaking, in a slasher environment especially, it's fun to see people who are assholes be brutally murdered for being assholes. That's just human nature. As in, not the murdering. That's not, no. Do we need more strong female characters in horror? We already have them. Nancy Thompson, Ellen Ripley, Laurie Strode, I can go on. How many strong male characters does the horror have? Ash Williams from Evil Dead comes to mind. Andy Barclay from Child's Play. Not nearly as much. I'm sure I could probably name him a couple more, but it is important to consider that these characters are only considered strong because of how they handle themselves in traumatic situations and their ability to act quick on their feet. This applies to both men and women. Almost like that is how character development is often portrayed in media. Yes, horror is misogynistic. Blame the men. I'm the problem. But horror is also very feminist and provides better female characters than most other genres. Violence is a staple of the genre, and most often than not, everybody dies. Not just women. If you're watching slashers, many slashers like I do, which I still tell myself is something that normal people do, you're going to see everybody dying left and right, not just women,
but the men and the children too.
in brutal and immoral ways that make you think, how the hell did they come up with this? And that's what makes it fun. Now, thank you everybody for watching. I am probably going to eventually do a follow-up video to this. Maybe. We will see. Anyway, thank you everybody so much for watching. I've already said that. If you like the video, I'm not going to have to tell you what to do. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, please. It really helps my self-esteem. Watch more slasher films, so I can say that's a normal thing to do. Yeah. Goodbye, motherfucker.